I needed somebody to tell me whether I was or not. Today, I'm going to be going through and making up a bunch of these, which actually turn out really nice once they're finished. But I've got to do some poured pewter pommels and some bolsters, and I've got, how many damn things do I have? There's 5 over there, there's 4 over here. Boys and girls, how many does that make with new Common Core math? No clue, but to me it counts as like 9. All right. We're going to need a few things. And by we, I mean myself. Let me grab these other ones right here. Some of these are going to end up getting the tangs trimmed down because they're just a bit too long. But there we go. I'm going to get another piece of foam board to put over here because that dim light is kind of bright. I need to adjust it. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to go through and first I'm going to block off the bolster end because I pour from the pommel end. All right. So let me move some stuff over here. And what I have is some aluminum tape. We call it HVAC tape because it's often used for sealing duct work. A little better than duct tape, maybe. Hell, I don't know. But it does feature aluminum, essentially a foil that's being used with an adhesive backer. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put this on here. Just kind of crease this down. And then I'm going to turn this. And do the same thing. So it's covered, this gap for what there is covered front and back. And the reason I do that is because, well, frankly, liquid metal is like liquid water. It goes path of least resistance. And it's going to pour out everywhere. If there's an opening, so by overlapping like this on all 4 sides, it actually seems to work quite well. What girl, Dave? I'm on video.
I will eat waffles tomorrow.
Okay. So I just make 4 little squares, and I go through here. Kids can watch this. There's not going to be anything inappropriate on it. Now, this is handling knives. And this is also, there's going to be, I'm going to be working with some hot materials. So you should always exercise caution. But this is just a process I use on making these fittings. So like I said, there's nothing inappropriate or anything like that. But I didn't want to put that it was made for kids and then somebody be like, oh, hey, he told my kid to melt some metal and somebody got burnt or hurt or something. Actually, the kids help with this all the time, and well, not all the time, but at different times. I don't let them mess with the hot stuff as far as pouring the pewter, but at times they do lend a hand. Now, if I don't get too bored in the process here, what I'll do is I'll get all of these ready. I'll get them all ready to go. And then we'll start heating some pewter and maybe even processing some pewter, because I have a little bit of processed, and I just got in a little over 11 pounds of scrap pewter I ordered off of eBay. All right, so there we go. I'm getting all of this closed up, getting it separated out, and every so often I don't get it closed up good enough, and I end up with molten pewter pour out. Daisy the cat, how's it going? Interesting name. So normally this isn't as boring as what this video is. And if you guys haven't subscribed, please do, because I've got more exciting videos. But if you are a DIY person or you're a knife maker and you're like, I wonder how they do poured pewter, I want to do that. Well, then here's a way that you can. And like to create educational content. And I believe this to be educational. So here we go. Like I said, I've got 9 of these to do right now, and then I've got quite a few over there that I'm going to have to go through the same process with. But I'm trying to do these in batches so I don't get burnt out on it, you know. And here's the other thing. I want you guys to think about if you're doing batch work. So if you're doing production runs, if you will, should you do them all at the same time? Should you try to do all at once? My recommendation is no. And why is that? Well, because as an example, Thursday night I did a live auction on Facebook. Well, I had done up a couple small batches, so I had like 10 of these available. I did some small batches, some already sold, etc. But I had 10 left. I put them up, and I was like, hey, I'm going to put some of these out here for sale. Well, people were buying them. That's a wonderful thing, especially when you start with something that looks like this and turn it into something that looks like that. It's a nice transition. It's not too far apart from what it is as far as the process, as far as how many steps you have to go through. But that one I just showed you, it's probably going to sell a little faster than this one. Why? Because this one's not done. Although I do have people come in and want kit pieces, if you will, or components, and we generally will sell those as well. So I've got a couple of these that I am going to have to trim the tangs on, which is not a real complicated process. But I'm going to block all of these off right now. And then I'm going to go through and start making the pommel cups. Now, some of you may be wondering, what is a pommel cup, Dustin? I've never heard of that before. Did you just make that up? No, not really. The pommel cup is what we create using some of this tape around the end, so it creates a cup or a bowl, and that essentially is the mold for that pommel when we pour it. And I guarantee I'm going to show you at least how to do at least one of those today. Unless a bunch of people walk in, I'm going to kill the video because I got to attend to customers. Lizzie's on her way, I believe. This is like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but instead of changing sweater vest or whatever when I come inside, I go from my good coat to my shop my shop vest. So there we go. Fun fact: Mr. Rogers has shot more people than I have, being that I have not shot anybody. Well, I shot at. They deserved it. No, it's a joke, guys. I had always heard that Mr. Rogers was a sniper in like World War II or something, and I don't know if that's true, but I always enjoyed watching him when I was little, and you know he like had good moral values and stuff. So I really couldn't. That and I like the puppets and stuff. Then kind of heard it referred to as like oatmeal TV, just good wholesome TV. Unless you're allergic to oatmeal or television or whatever. Okay. Once more, guys, if you haven't subscribed, I don't know how many people are continuing to watch this, but if you haven't subscribed, I appreciate if you would. So, like I said, this is not a real exciting part of the process just because I'm getting ready to do 9 of these. Now, the cool thing is, when I look at this, a price point between, let's say, $150 and $250 each, then what's my average on that? Just call it $200. I mean, there's like $1,800 worth of potential stock here. Where did I do my glasses? There's my glasses. I'm going to put these on so I do have a little bit of eye protection. You know, somebody's going to complain about that. So let me go get actual eyeglass or safety glasses. And I'm going to rotate this around here. And this one, so I don't know if you caught what I did on that last one. I actually left a little bit protruding since it's more central, and then notched in so that I've got a little extra for that pewter to lock onto. Now, once I pour these, I call them permanently attached. Now, I can heat them. I can melt the pewter off. I can, so I mean, you can remove it. It's not, nothing is forever, if you will. I mean, even if it's welded, it can be taken apart with enough care or force. So, in this case, what I like to do, is I like to friction fit before, which is what I was doing in my Facebook live video. I was friction fitting these and drove them on just a little bit with that pith that collapses some and forms to that tang and gives me a friction fit so that, for example, that doesn't fall and bust my glass display case, which would be not awesome. All right. So when I do these, I also have found that the adhesive on this tape is pretty decent, but it does like to release if there's too much heat. And too much heat is something we are likely to generate in pouring that pewter, depending upon how long it retains that temperature. So what I will be doing is pouring directly on this end, fill the cup for what I will to create the pommel, and then I'll be going through and removing the tape from this end, creating a bolster cup, and pouring a bolster. And there may be some torch leveling. And torch leveling is a process that I've been working with, and a smaller torch with a high flame seems to work better. I'll probably end up using just a small propane torch to demonstrate the process. But with torch leveling, once you've poured the pewter, if it sets up in a manner where the surface texture is a little rough, or perhaps it just doesn't quite turn out, you need to change. One side's higher than the other on the bolster. You can actually use a torch to melt that pewter again, and if you hold it the right way, then it's auto leveling because of it being in a liquid state, essentially. Sorry about that. Now, when you do this, I recommend kind of crease down and then fold over. Make sure you get all of that covered because you don't want molten pewter running out. One, it can be expensive if it's wasted. Or, like when so you don't want to be wasteful about it. But at the same time, you want to be cautious and maybe not hold on just a second, and maybe not pour it on your glove or your pants. I have one or two pairs of jeans that I have had pewter splatter. It fell and splattered and got on my jeans. Well, your melting point is, I don't know, somewhere between probably 375 and 465, somewhere in there. And that stuff, it doesn't dissolve with soap or anything like that when you wash them. So you just end up with some sparkly adornment, unintentional adornment to your clothes. I suppose you could intentionally do. I don't think I'd recommend it. All right, guys. So here is the last one. All right, here we go. But being this is the last one, let's go ahead and let's do a few of those pommel cups. What I like to do, I like to wrap the tape around it first before I take the backer off of it. And it's important that when you do this to try to, one, have enough adhesion to the handle material on the lower portion so that as that tape heats from, or the tape and the adhesive gets heated up from the molten pewter, from the casting process in general, that it doesn't let go. Because if it lets go while it's still molten, it is not an awesome experience to deal with. I've had it happen before, and especially if I'm holding the handle with a glove or something, I'll have molten pewter running down the handle and onto my glove, and sometimes that gets warm. Well, there it is. Fold this in at the top just a little bit. And then a lot of times I'll take a pencil or a paintbrush handle or something to go around there and just kind of round it out. But that's pretty much what we're doing here. All right, I think everybody's been waiting long enough. Now let's go ahead and pour one of these. Okay, here we go. Now, there's my piece of leather. I'll get a couple of these prepped, but just in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and lock it in the vise temporarily. Okay. Let some of that pewter heat up in the forge, and once it goes molten, then I'm going to go ahead and pour this. Now I've got a minute or two, so I think I can probably get a couple more bolster cups. Put on these knives. And I like to have a little bit of an overlap here. Having an overlap seems to help with the structural integrity of the cup itself. And keep in mind that with the material you're using, and if it's tapered or anything like that, it's going to affect how you have to manipulate this material. Now there will be some contraction of the material as it cools, and I'm primarily talking about the pewter. All right, so there's one. That's kind of ugly, but it'll work. Method, I generally shorten my handle material up some because I'm pouring the handle, if you will. Pushing and pulling against the tape there. But now let's go over to the forge because the pewter's molten. Come in here, and this one I'm going to tilt at an angle just a bit, and pour my pewter. Then I'm going to let it set up. Sometimes you have to be cautious about this splashing. You really don't want to get it on you. this is starting to solidify, but because of the wave action from moving around, it kind of crusted up. And now it's starting to go. So once it solidifies, I'm going to cool it in a bucket of water real quick and show you guys the results. Also, what I'm doing, don't do that, because if there is a gas pocket and it pops you in the face, it's not going to be awesome. Now, I'm going to try to auto level that, torch level it. Again. Alright, now she's cool. Got a little bit of steam, a little bit of sizzle going on. Boys and girls, there's a pommel. All right, well, hell, let's do that again. That's getting a little bit of bubbling from the air being displaced in the antler. A little bit of air gets trapped in there. Still semi-molten. About this is, if done cautiously and precisely enough, we get a pretty good fit up to the handle material. And we get that by making a pommel cut. Here we go. I'm going to heat the pewter up again. See. Well, thank you very much. Now this actually has a lot of, I don't know if you guys can see that. It's had a lot of bubbling going on, and now it doesn't. But I want to smooth out that surface texture a little bit. That's the glue that's burning right there. And now that it is calmer, the idea is to keep that surface relatively undisturbed for what I can. And you can see some smoke coming out of the antler. All right, now we're solid. Warm. And that peels off a lot easier when it's warm, when it's hot like that. So there's four pommels. All right. Well, I've got more to do. If you guys get a chance, stop by and say, hey, we're at 409 North Main Street in St. Elmo. Axle Main Forge and Memory. And be sure to subscribe. Check out some of my other videos. Catch you in a few.